My daughter, 16, Megan, just finished her cancer treatment. She's lost her hair in the process and she's been incredibly insecure because of it. She no longer meets friends nor welcomes them at our home nor even meets family in person. It's been bad to say the least, but her stepbrother, Ben, 18, has been making it worse with his nagging comments and jokes about her looks. He tried taking and posting pics of her secretly to share, but I shut that down even though my husband thought it was just harmless teasing. My husband's sister's wedding was last week. The family wanted Megan to go, but she didn't want to. I spent so much time trying to help her and convince her to start socializing again and see family. She agreed under the condition that I let her wear a wig, which I agreed. Not only that, but I took her shopping to pick her own wig, and she looked beautifully stunning in her pixie hairstyle wig. My husband and Ben laughed when they saw it. I don't know why. We went to the wedding and everything was going well till this happened. We were all sitting and we were talking about Megan's look. Suddenly, Ben reached out and pulled her wig and exposed her head. I was shocked. I froze, but Megan yelled and then took her wig and ran. Ben, his cousins, and some guests started laughing. I was upset, especially when I looked over my shoulder and saw my husband sitting next to his mom and laughing. I lost it on Ben and berated him in front of everyone, then took my stuff, got Megan, and got into the car and went home. Ben and my husband didn't have a ride back home, and my husband kept calling me, but I didn't respond. He came home asking me about leaving mid-wedding and upsetting his sister, and then leaving him and Ben without a ride home. I argued with him about how Ben embarrassed Megan and humiliated her publicly, which must have ruined what's left of her self-esteem. He said that it was just kids teasing each other, and that I overreacted and Ben had no malicious intent, he was just messing with her. I said I was sick of it, but he said that this is their way of bonding as step-siblings and I was getting in the way of it and being overprotective and unreasonable. We didn't talk after that. Ben is refusing to apologize and his dad is backing him up. So am I the asshole for taking my daughter and leaving the wedding after her stepbrother pulled her wig? My wife and I bought a 4-bedroom house in Pennsylvania that my son lives in. Our son went to college in Pennsylvania and wanted to stay in the area. So we bought the house as a second home. We live in New Jersey and commute to Manhattan for work. We figured that he would have a place to live and we could visit every so often and spend some quality time together. We pay taxes and services, maintenance on the house. Our son pays for his groceries and the house utilities. All was going well for a few years. Our son meets a girl and they get serious. We met her and she seems nice enough. They announce their engagement and she moves into the house with our son. Now, for the problem. The wedding. We hold a little get-to-know-you barbecue at the Pennsylvania house. My son and daughter are there, as are our son's fiancé and her parents and her sisters. We all seem to be getting along well. My wife, daughter, and the fiancé go into the house along with her mother and sisters and my son. A few minutes later, my wife and daughter come out and are really upset. They come over and tell me that we're leaving and driving back to New Jersey. I try to find out what happened. Once we get back to New Jersey, they calm down and tell me that our son and his fiancé, along with her family, don't want us at the wedding. According to what I was told, we're not their kind of people. I was livid. I called my son and asked him what the hell this was all about. He tells me that her family feels that we're not good enough and will embarrass him at a family wedding and that we're all uninvited from the wedding. I let a week go by to calm myself down and drive back to the Pennsylvania house. The new future in-laws are in the house along with the fiancé. It appears that they've all moved into the house. They ask me why I'm there. I tell them that since we aren't invited to the wedding, I was coming over to talk to my son. That's when they tell me to leave their house. I lost it and told them that they had 30 days to get out. I also say, tell my son I'm selling the house and he can find somewhere else to live with all of you. I go to a realtor in town and list the house for sale. They call my son at work and tell him what I said. Apparently they thought that he owned the house. He calls me and asks why I'm selling the house. I tell him that I paid for it along with the taxes on it and it's mine. He was living there rent-free, but since he doesn't want us in his new life, he has to get out. I tell him the same that I told his future in-laws. They have 30 days to get out, then I'll get a lawyer and get them evicted. Am I the asshole for taking a hard stance on this and throwing them out of the house that we own? Am I the asshole for telling my daughter that I didn't feel bad for not letting her cut her hair the way she wanted? I, 46 female, have a daughter 15 female. She has always been a bit boyish for a girl ever since she was younger. Instead of wearing dresses, she'd wear shirts and pants with small little boy shoes. People often asked if my daughter was a boy. I would answer no because she was my little girl. As she got older, I began to ask her to wear dresses to social gatherings we went to. I immigrated to the US in 2006, a year before I had my daughter. I was born and raised in Bangladesh. She would always comply and wear our dresses, though often she would wear a kurta and dress like a boy still. I didn't mind because it meant that she could be a bit girly. My friends often commented on how beautiful she looked when she wore dresses and looked feminine. However, recently, I've noticed my daughter has been trying to act more like a man. I thought she was in a phase because when she was younger, she got bullied by the other kids in the group. She still gets mad over it. However, I took her to the hair salon for a haircut recently because she asked. I obliged because she wanted to change up her hairstyle again. She always had a habit of doing so. I noticed she was secretive with her hairstyle and I immediately knew something was up. The hairstylist working on her asked me if I was okay with her chopping my daughter's hair up to her ears. I got confused and asked her to show me the photo. She did and I got mad. I told her that I wouldn't let her do the hairstyle. It wouldn't look good on her because it was too manly. The hairstylist asked me how much she should chop off and I told her to the collarbone. My daughter began to cry and make a scene in front of the hairstylist and the instructor who had walked over. I began telling her to pull herself together and to stop throwing a tantrum. She knew she wasn't allowed to have short hair because she didn't know how to take care of her hair properly. We eventually finished up and I told her we had to go. As I paid, she immediately barged out the front door. I found her in the back. I told her to get in the car and we had to go home. She gave me the silent treatment the entire day until I entered her room and asked her what she wanted for dinner. She immediately went off on me, calling me every name under the sun and calling me a bad mother. She demanded an apology from me when I told her that I didn't feel guilty whatsoever for what I did. I wouldn't apologize to her. Girls aren't supposed to have short hair. She must have gone talking about it because I've been getting calls and texts from her dad's side of the family along with friends berating me for not letting my daughter get the haircut that she wanted and that it was only hair and it would grow back. It's part of my culture. I only want the best for my daughter. I love my daughter a lot and I would do anything for her, but I couldn't let her make this mistake. So am I the asshole here? Am I the asshole for taking my medication in front of my future step-siblings? I, 16 female, have epilepsy. I have seizures because of it and I take medication for those seizures. It's a condition I cannot control, which many people in my life don't really get, except for my dad, unfortunately. My mom and dad have been separated for 3 years. She started dating this guy, Jeff, who's a single dad of 2 kids, ages 6 and 8. He comes over with his kids to visit us every week. Yesterday, he visited and brought the kids. I don't usually, sit with him, but this time I had to get to know my future siblings better, as a mom says. Anyway, while we were sitting, I grabbed my medication, which made Jeff side eye me for 30 seconds. He then told his kids to go to the other room, then started berating me, asking what the hell I just did. I was so confused by his language, not knowing what he meant. He told me it was not okay for me to take my medication in front of his kids. I was like, why not? And he started ranting about how his kids shouldn't see this stuff and that I should have went to my room or any other room to take my medication if it was so important to me. I was shocked my mom didn't even say anything at the time, which really got me questioning what I did. He then said those are my step-siblings, they're of young age and should not be exposed to such sights, and that I'm gonna have to come up with a better way to deal with my condition and medication intake because he doesn't want his kids exposed to that once we all start living together as a family. I told him it wasn't my problem, which caused the argument to escalate. My mom sided with him and I had to go to my room to calm down a bit. After he and his kids left, my mom picked another argument with me saying I should have been more considerate of the kids seeing my medication and said that Jeff has a point, but I was being too rude to him. She told me she's expecting me to apologize and get it right with Jeff next time he visits, but I said no. Now I'm punished for the next weekend for my attitude towards my stepdad. So I'm 17 and teach gymnastics to young kids, usually between the ages of 2 to 10. I regularly teach 19 classes a week, sometimes more. One of my regular classes has a girl with a stammer in it. Let's call her Jane. Jane is around 8 years old and has a stammer since I started coaching her almost a year ago. She used to be really quiet and hated talking, but as she's gotten used to the class and has become more confident, she talks more. One day, around 5 to 6 months into teaching her, I'm doing the register whilst my coworker is running a warm-up. While I'm doing this, I'm humming Shake It Off by Taylor Swift, which had just been played minutes earlier. Jane comes up to ask me a question and stops dead in her tracks, asking if that's Taylor Swift. Turns out, she loves Taylor's music and all of a sudden bursts into song. This takes me by surprise. A girl who wouldn't even speak to me a couple months ago is now singing at the top of her lungs. I feel a small sense of pride as she's become so much more confident in herself. For the rest of the lesson, I let her sing quietly as long as she joins in. The next week, however, she arrives singing very loudly and repeatedly stops my lesson to sing, not only stopping her class but also her peers. Multiple times I asked the group as a whole to be quiet in hopes that she would quiet down and stop annoying her peers and me. After 45 minutes, the other kids were frustrated at the constant singing and lack of respect for them as they had politely asked her multiple times to stop and she ignored them. I said the group doing an activity and then took her aside. I explained that there were other children in classes going on and she was disturbing them by being a bit loud and asked her to stop singing so loudly and maybe rest her voice as some of the other children prefer the quiet. I made sure to be especially understanding and kind with her as I know how much she struggles with things like this. She said okay and then went to join in. She didn't speak to anyone, including me, for the rest of the lesson, and at home time just got her shoes and left. I do feel bad for asking her to be quiet as her singing took a lot of confidence and she may be embarrassed now, but the other classes were going on and the other children were suffering because of it, so I do feel slightly justified. Am I the asshole for telling a girl with a stammer to be quiet? Am I the asshole for telling my in-laws about what their son's girlfriend did to my son's blanket, causing her to get shunned? I, female 33, found out that my ex-husband, male 37, was cheating on me when I was 7 months pregnant with our son. I got a divorce and we share custody of our 3-year-old son now. My ex-husband's girlfriend tried to get involved with my parenting several times. She even commented on my son's name, implying that we should agree on a name that we all want, not just what I wanted, and try to dictate what he should and shouldn't have. As a result, she started throwing out stuff of his that I paid for myself. Honestly, it's frustrating because I'm barely getting by with money that I have and can't afford to buy a replacement for all the stuff that she throws out, but my ex-husband said it's her house and she gets to decide on what can and can't enter. I made a crocheted blanket for my son with his name on it. This blanket is special to me and the tools I used to be able to make it cost me money, not to mention the time and effort it took to get it done. I sent my son to stay with his dad a few days ago and he wanted to take the blanket with him to sleep in it. I don't know exactly what happened, but when I came to pick him up, he told me that his dad's girlfriend took it away from him and threw it out, leaving him with no blanket to sleep with that night as a punishment for him not accepting the one that she offered. I was furious. I called his dad, but he hung up on me and I sent him a text explaining the situation, but he texted back telling me that I should stop the drama and go look for a job if I have so much free time on my hand instead of picking on his girlfriend. I felt frustrated. I visited my family who are good to me and told them about what their son's girlfriend did. Now it's worth mentioning that she's been working hard for their approval to get on their good side. They were shocked to know about what she did and they all flipped out on her and started calling her out. My sister-in-law took it further by putting this on social media, which made the other family members see what she did. My ex-husband called me yelling about my pathetic attempt to turn his family against his girlfriend. I could hear her freaking out in the background while he was lashing out at me saying I ruined every chance she had to have a good relationship with her future in-laws. I hung up and felt absolutely horrible, even though I was just venting to his family about what happened and felt frustrated. Maybe I shouldn't have told them? I'm not sure anymore since the whole family isn't speaking to her, so that might have a lasting impact on the relationship with her. So I married my husband 3 years ago. He was divorced and previously widowed. He has 2 daughters, Annie, who is now 26 from his first marriage, and Amy, who is 17 from his second. My husband told me about his late wife, his ex-wife, the issues they had in his blended family when he remarried and Annie was not on board with him remarrying, and the fact that this strain ended his second marriage. He was also honest that Annie never forgave him for remarrying and never wanted to do anything with Amy or him after she turned 18. What he didn't tell me was the major role he played in all of this. I found this out 3 weeks ago at dinner with his extended family. The story as I know it, when Amy was around 5 years old, she took a special interest in a necklace that belonged to his late wife. My husband gave the necklace to Amy, which upset Annie because all of her mother's possessions were meant to go to her. My husband told Annie that it was just one item and she needed to get over it because Amy was entitled to have something too. Annie had brought up that it was a piece her mother wore the most. My husband told her it was a special gift to give to her sister, that she was being selfish. His ex-wife told her that her mother would want someone as special as your sister to have a piece of her as well. Annie never got over it. She tried to take it from Amy and was punished. The last time she saw any of them, she told them all to go to fucking hell. Amy still has the necklace too. She's let it get into a bad way and talks about it as if her dad bought it for her. I was shocked. I would have never expected my husband to be that way. He was very unapologetic about it and told me that Annie would have to get over it someday. I told him that he should be ashamed of himself, that he should have allowed Annie's mother's possessions to be her to do with as she chose, and that Amy did not give a crap about his late wife or the significance of those items, but Annie would have. I told him that he would be incredibly lucky if his daughter ever speaks to him again and that I would not blame her if she never did. He was furious that I judged him. His family said I should take my husband's side over his daughter who I don't even know, except for the nephew and niece who told the whole story because they also think my husband did a fucked up thing. Am I the asshole for telling my husband that he should be ashamed of himself for what he did?